What is up, guys, and welcome back to OWL by the Numbers, your one-stop spot for all things Fantasy Overwatch League. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 21, we'll be taking a look back at the upsets that rocked Pick'ems this past weekend, let you know where the Florida Mayhem's roster is going to shift to next because their rebuild is at this point complete, since they are at the max of 12 players. We'll also get you primed for your unlimited drafts for Stage 3, week number 4, and of course, pick some of our winners for the marquee matches from the week ahead. So before we can jump into the agenda for tonight and introduce you to my co-host, let me just take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course, thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So as always, I am joined by a full house tonight. We have all three of my co-hosts with me. First up, we have the king himself. We have Editor. Ed, how's the past week been treating you?
It's been going pretty good. It was a decent week. I am in first place in 2 of the standard leagues. I'm in third place now for unlimited. I am behind Ramses. I will say that.
Wait, are you third place? Because it shows that Totem's third.
Was
You're
it?
fifth.
You know what? Can we really trust anything?
Because before this week, I was second and he was 8th. Before this week,
Maybe there's that strong.
but me and Totem played the same roster.
Almost.
Almost the same roster. But I don't know. We can't go back and check. That's the problem. But Pick'ems were a little rough this week.
A little
rough. Sunday was not kind to Pick'ems.
Did they show back up yet?
No. You still can't see how your Pick'ems went the past 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you wrote them down beforehand. It was just a rough week because there were so many upsets. Who in their right mind had Florida beating Houston? Who in their right mind had the Valiant
Look at the grin on his face when he said that too.
I actually didn't. I did not. I picked Houston. But who had the Valiant beating the Titans? So I think everyone's pick'ems were. You had the Valiant beating Vancouver.
So this is where it pays to watch Twitter, up until the very, very last second, because
Twitter you can trust.
No, you watch it for 2 different things. The minute that Boston said we're gonna start Aim God, I immediately switched my picks for Boston and Paris.
Yeah, I already had Boston. Okay, continue.
And then all the news started coming out the day before where Super was going yeah, Valiant's going to wreck everybody in scrims. You watched a vast stream and they were like, yeah, Valiant's definitely going to beat Vancouver. So I decided to take the flyer and then put Valiant over Vancouver at the very, literally 5 minutes before that game was about to start.
So what I took away from this is...
Dude, Scrimbucks do not count
Ramses bases his decision on Scrimbucks.
They paid off this week.
They
paid off this week.
I'd say it was just a fluke. I don't think Scrimbucks ever pay off. Scrimbucks don't mean shit in the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
I would just like to say, Soul Drink, your check's in the mail. I'm currently beating Ed and Totem and Bob for Pick'ems and Unlimited, so I will take this wild ride while I can get it.
You want to know the best thing? Is you're not in the highnoon.gg Unlimited or Pick'em. So you don't get crap if you beat us.
That's fine. You know what?
I'm just saying. I went on to where the majority of people are, and I'm like, where's Ramses? He's not on here. Oh, he obviously doesn't care about competing with the vast majority of people on the website.
Mm-hmm.
He only wants to compete with fewer people to make himself look better and boost his morale.
As long as that one person I compete with is Ed, then I think I'm going to be happy with it.
I'm pretty sure me and you play each other this week, too.
Oh, and then I'm going to get wrecked because that's what happens when your entire roster is half Boston, half Atlanta, and then maybe one other player.
Hey, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because we're still working on it, but I'm trying to help you out here. Yes, there's collusion.
He needs all the help that he can get.
There is collusion happening.
Bobby, how's your week been so far?
Oh, it's been okay. Been just pretty tired. I've been running around trying to find a new apartment, moving up north closer to Denver, and so been doing all that and getting all the paperwork they need together, and been it's been quite crazy. But Overwatch, I played a good amount over the weekend. I lost a good amount over the weekend, which was interesting, but all in all, it's pretty good. Fantasy not going good. Pickup's still going fine. I'd be pretty dang close to you if I hadn't missed four games over the freaking length of it. But that's the only thing that's really going good for me, really, fantasy wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my week was actually pretty
Although, hey,
good.
I will say,
Mm-hmm.
Totem, the London New York game was pretty good.
It was. It wasn't a stomp.
So my unlimited was not a bad pick.
All right, Bob's unlimited is about equal to Julian or Ramsey's using Scrimbucks to make his games. Like that
He's
is
going
on
all
that
in,
level.
all in with an entire
Paid off.
roster.
Paid off.
You know
Just
what?
saying.
Bob should just do that every week, and then as soon as it crashes, we'll just give him crap about it.
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
going.
man.
It's under 50-50 that this happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see what he says his unlimited draft is going to be when we get to the later part of the show. As for myself, this week was actually a mixed bag. You know, Pick'ems was definitely a thing where I swapped a couple of the games and I ended up getting all of them wrong. So I'm just going to go with my gut instinct initially and then not change. Because I know, Ed, you and I were talking about, like, well, I felt these are going to be really close, and then I ended up tipping the other way, and then that just completely backfired. But really across the board, I think like this week in Unlimited, I got a little bit of catching up to do after that prior week, which just completely screwed me out of like top 2 finishes in pretty much all the major leagues out there. But across the board, it's been a pretty good week. I did pick up some wins. I know Ramses and I picked up another win. We're still locking down first place in the Podcasters Fantasy Showdown, so you know we still got that.
Bob, we're not doing good.
Yeah, it's really, you're just going against Ed at this point.
Yeah, we're not doing good.
Checked out of that one.
Yep.
I gave you Guguri, and then I went on my merry way.
And Zachary. You
Mhm.
managed to
God,
give me Zachary.
don't
as
stop!
well.
Don't mention
And-
his name
and-
right now. I'm so
and-
mad at him.
And you managed to give me Fissure in the 3rd round.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, it
things are
wasn't a
looking up.
It wasn't a bad pick months ago. It wasn't a bad pick
No, it wasn't.
months ago.
It turns out to be bad, but I mean, that's how it goes. You know what I mean?
I mean, Fisher did
Hindsight's
go
20.
pretty high in a lot of our leagues. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the news from this past week. So as we mentioned, Pick'ems this past week was kind of all over the place, and a lot of that was due to a lot of the upsets and actually went down on Sunday, but really across the board when we look at the results from this last week. And by upsets, I mean based on either like perception, just based on what the current standings were, or just based on who the majority had voted for in the Pick'em. So there was really a handful of games that tilted the other way than what the majority of the HighNoon.gg fan base had voted on. So Ramses, let's talk about the week that was, because there was a lot of stuff that really caught people by surprise. Probably none bigger than, of course, the Valiant resurgence, where they've kind of put themselves into a position where they have a shot at making the Stage 3 playoffs.
Yeah, Valiant had a great week, and we've been hearing a lot of rumblings that, like, you know, aside the whole Scrimbucks talk I was saying earlier, we've heard a lot of rumblings that like Valiant looks way better and they're a lot more cohesive. We've seen their performance improve a little bit, so like we expected them to compete against Shanghai, but like not to actually beat Shanghai in its current form. So LA actually staged 2 upsets this week. The first one being them beating Shanghai 3-1, and then later, of course, at the end of the week, they beat the Vancouver Titans 3-1. And then Shanghai turned around, beat the LA Gladiators 3-1. Seems like all these upsets went at least 3-1, maybe 3 went to 3-2, excuse me. Philadelphia Fusion beat the Atlanta Reign, which I feel bad, but I don't consider these Atlanta games upsets because Atlanta can only beat teams in the top 4 and then immediately fall back down to the ground.
Right, that was more based on the pick rate. A lot of people
Yeah.
were favoring Atlanta with the player base on that one.
It's a
Yeah,
bummer
'cause
because like
Philadelphia, not because Atlanta's great, but because Philadelphia's been bad.
Hmm.
well, and even then, people get this head full of steam after like the last two stages. Like, guys, Atlanta looks really good. Atlanta looks really good. They're going to be a top team this stage, and then they just simmer right back down to like lower middle of the pack, and then they come back up like, guys, like Atlanta like competed with Vancouver and San Francisco. Like, they're going to be a good team this stage, and then just right back down to the middle.
Groundhog Day. It keeps repeating.
So after that, Hangzhou Spark beat the Seoul Dynasty 3-2. Which again, hadn't they already beaten the Dynasty before this?
Yeah, they did. That was 3-1 in a prior series. I want to say the community had tipped in Dynasty's favor. I want to say it was
That
like
was-
65-35 in favor of the Dynasty on that
Well,
one.
community, you were definitely wrong on that one. I know I picked Spark, so
So did I.
Well, and it's the thing where Spark is one of those teams that is playing at a very high level, but people just don't really think about as much.
Can we talk about Soul real quick? Sorry, Totem.
Wait, which one? The one of the 8 different looks that we saw from them?
Exactly. Like, from a fantasy perspective, and even a fan perspective, or pick'em, or anything, is there any player on Soul that you can trust? And can you actually trust the team?
you said
this
this
point.
last week and the week before, and both times we agreed with you. Or maybe it was just last week.
I think it was
No, he
just
said
last week.
Well, no, because you could actually agree like with players that like, all right, well they're gonna start like one. of
We
these
all
guys.
thought, like, I mean, we went in with Jaehong.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
because Jaehong 2 weeks ago played in every map and just destroyed it. Like, he was the top point getter for the entire week 2 weeks ago. Last week, we put him in as our support, at least Totem and I did,
Mhm.
and he played 3 of the 5 maps. And you're just like, okay, well, the one constant, you're just like, all right, now we can't even count on Jaehong to be in there.
Mhm.
And
Soul
it's just-
Dynasty, you are the weakest link.
Right? Like, from a fantasy perspective, just don't start any of them.
Yeah, they
Period.
went from really
Period.
the best fantasy scoring team in the league right now to one that is just making so many substitutions where you're probably netting like 60% of your total points.
Yeah, I mean, and there's probably 2 people. Yeah, probably 2 people worth actually keeping on that team. The rest you could probably drop. And I mean, Jaehong and Alyssa, I think are the only 2 I would actually keep. The rest of them are just kind of like, Michelle is kind of fallen off into nothingness.
Mhm.
Fleta you can never count on. You can't even count on. Well, the
I-
main
I-
supports aren't really worth keeping.
I don't know that I'd keep any
Regardless.
of them, especially with the resurgence of the 222 rumor, and this time being reported by multiple sources.
Yeah, we had it reported by multiple sources before
No,
stage 3.
We had
Well-
hints. This is actually like the only person, like, there was no one that ever said it was for sure coming. It was a ton of
Halo
hints,
of Thoughts did. And
Uh,
then also you forget about the tweet
Halo of
from
Thoughts was
Houston.
the one that came out and said it wasn't happening.
Okay, I thought it was. There was somebody
Uh,
posted a full-on article.
you're-
Plus, the Houston Outlaws
you're
also tweeted
thinking
about
of,
it and removed it.
I will
They
say
tweeted about wanting it in, and that got removed. You can find that on the Your Overwatch Twitter. They took a screenshot of it.
Mhm.
I guess we just
No,
can't
it
count
was,
on it at all.
it was
until
what's-
Blizzard.
Let me
announced it.
finish. It was what's his name? The biggest leaker. Why am I blanking on
Slasher.
your name? Slasher. Thank you. Yeah, Slasher was the one that said they were making a lot of changes that he had said would be good for the game, but this time, it's literally being leaked 222 in stage 4 on multiple publications.
Yeah, I'm sure like prior it was just in early discussions, but it wasn't
Hmm.
concrete yet, and now it's getting to that finalized stage at this point. But we're still waiting on official confirmation, and we'll see what sort of impact that's going to have on fantasy when we know for sure when that's going to happen, because that's going to be a pretty lengthy discussion as
Gonna
well.
blow it up. Yep.
the other games to mention this week would be Boston Uprising defeating Paris Eternal 3-2, which hey, like maybe Boston plays really well when they have Aim God and both their DPS actually get to play heroes that they enjoy playing.
Well, they also go to map 5 more than any other team in the league as well.
Yeah,
like
it
their
was
20th
another
map
reverse
5.
sweep.
Just aim. Happy to see you, Aim God. Thank you for coming back in my life. Florida Mayhem beat Houston 3-1, and then the LA Valiant, like we talked about before, beat the Vancouver Titans 3-1. Vancouver scored really highly this week in, I think, both formats. Where I think Hawksaw was the biggest combined with 390.55, Salem and Sioux with 382, and then Janu as well with 331. So I know we've been kind of stepping away from the. We've been trying to step away a little bit from the standard and from the raw scoring just because it's been so up in the air. But at least it seems that with more DPS kind of entering the meta, like we're seeing a little bit more of an uptick in points from offensive players.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to like the 2 Brig players that actually score points.
Yeah.
Yeah, is Jake like actually finally a good fantasy pick?
Jake scored 270 combined. He's in like the top, I think, 15.
Yep, and probably one of the games was better than the other. Like the second game of the week, he spent half of the match feeding on Brigitte and dying first in all the team fights.
Well, when we talk about the stats not being correct, I mean, Bob, you watched both Dallas games, right? Unko only played in one game, right?
Yeah, the second game, he supposedly had an eye infection or something wrong with his eye that flared up. They said he couldn't play. Harry came in, and then he was streaming the next day, and his eye looked pretty normal.
So why does he have 2 scores for combined and best? Why are they different? Please,
Because it was a last-minute thing too. But Harry was super excited to get to play, and Harry actually played really well. It definitely wasn't his fault that they lost. Like he had
no. What he's saying is Unko has
I got you.
281 points.
Yeah, I'm saying that's just an error. It's probably because it was such a late switch out. The Overwatch League.
Errors?
I mean,
the
Overwatch League.
There's no errors in the API or the Overwatch League statistics. What are you talking about?
Harry Hook has stats, so I mean, I don't know if it's an error.
Oh no, it's obviously an error.
Well, it's an error,
but is
someone's
it an error with the API or an error with? It could have been that it got, I don't know, the API double classified it, and Unko didn't get taken out, and they both. Do they like what's? It doesn't say individual game score. If we saw that like Harry and Unko had an individual,
it was 147.42 was his best, and then his combined is 281.1.
And then what did Harry get?
63.
Huh, that doesn't. Yeah, it sounds like they had Harry in for just like 2 maps or something like that. Like I have no idea.
And this is why we can't trust Unlimited or Standard or
back to Unlimited and Pick'ems. Yep, it kind of screwed up a lot of people's Pick'ems, like we were talking about, and I know I'm preaching some snake oil here with like the Scrimbucks argument, but it really does, at least to me, to my like experience, it pays to pay attention to Twitter just to get as much news as you can to the very last second before the game goes live.
Well, especially if you have Dynasty players, because they will always tweet out their starting lineup. So does Boston, but not every team has been doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could also see it, like Ed said, if you have the all access pass, like as soon as it starts before the players come out, like it shows the lineup up there.
Yeah, but does it is that too late to be able to change?
It is now too late to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because now it's 10-minute cutoff before, so 10-2 when the game's supposed to start is the cutoff. And they don't ever have it up till like a couple minutes beforehand.
Gotcha.
So there's no more doing that. Honestly, your best bet just is to look at Twitter.
So get that critical information while you can, guys.
Yeah, because you definitely don't want to put up a goose egg, even on one slot, because definitely a bit more than one of us in the ass a couple weeks ago, especially with Boston, especially. So looking at the recent roster changes, obviously there's been a lot of stuff happening with the Florida Mayhem. I know they added some more coaches to their coaching staff, which included a new head coach, a new assistant coach, as well as a new analyst. But they also had 3 new roster signings as well to bring them up to the league max of 12, and we do have a little bit of insight on what this is going to mean for the Florida Mayhem in regards to their starting lineup, and due to that, we'll also know what that means for who's going to be playing on the bench at this point and taking, a seat there. So, Bob, what has been going on with the Florida Mayhem after, this pretty big win and upset over the Houston Outlaws?
Well, they've just been getting all of their new roster that Bare Hands is actually picking, and from what Bare Hands said on Oversight yesterday, it sounds like this is his team, and they're going to be working towards winning stuff, like winning stage playoffs and stuff in season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have any aspirations for them, like jumping way up in power rankings here, in season 2. So this is his roster, and it looks like it's a team that he basically just grabbed a bunch of people from one team, and I can't remember the name of the team.
Yeah, that was
WGS Armament.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's been making moves, and I mean I think he's trying to temper expectations, but I think they have a chance to definitely win a handful of games before the end of this season.
Totem, you're.
Yep.
Oh, I was gonna ask Totem. You're a lot more you have a lot more in-depth knowledge with the Korean Contendo scene than I do.
Okay.
I was having this argument with Abasco last night. Like, for the money, are these the best players that he actually could have gotten? Because from what he was saying, like Armament made it to playoffs and then was out pretty quickly.
Right. Well, here's the thing. We don't know what the salaries are. We don't know what money they've been working with, just due to, Mayhem having to pay up some of their other contracts with some of the players that they did release. I will say, when you just look at it from, a role-by-role, side-by-side comparison, this is definitely a huge upgrade at off-tank, especially, because Zephyr has not been holding his weight. Gargoyle has been one of the more prominent default players, but what's weird... Okay.
Zephyr won them the game, yeah.
Yeah, Zephyr's heads up play on Bastion on Watchpoint Gibraltar.
That was an oxymoron.
Well,
you said.
you know what? Jonas made a play on Winston.
Giannis
Finally after all of this time, but that's not going to change the fact that he's still the 20th ranked.
Yep. Well, I mean,
main tank in the league.
Yeah, you could make the case they wouldn't have been in that situation.
I mean, Bob, you did just say Bastion and heads up play. that just those 2 words don't go together.
You are wrong, sir.
I think
you are so wrong.
What Zephyr was doing was not a heads up. What Zephyr was doing is plopping down and spraying.
No, it was extreme heads.
Okay, so
to switch the Bastion, and it won the game.
It did, but all he did was sit there and spray.
He moved forward a couple. He repositioned by a couple feet, and then he sprayed again. The thing that's kind of interesting with these fantasy pickups is that Florida kind of went out of their way in the article they posted about these signings that, hey, we're gonna kind of give a little bit of insight to the roles we expect these to play. So they were talking about DPI they called him a flex DPS, but they were mainly referring to him as their diva specialist. Explicitly they said it. And then Gargoyle was listed as their off tank. They really mentioned his Zarya before anything. He also, I think the thing with Gargoyle is that this is a player that we've known they wanted to sign or were in the works of signing for a while. But I remember when the Byram news came out about a couple weeks ago, that was we also knew in talks that Gargoyle was apparently part of that package. So he's finally in, but I'm having a hard time figuring out who's actually going to get the majority of fantasy playtime between those two. And then we get more news with Karayan, who was the main tank for Armament.
Mhm.
Like they were really touting his Reinhardt, and like that he's going to be like more like not a Ryan specialist necessarily, but that's the main hero they want to use him for. And they go so far in the article as to say that like through scrim time and practice, like him and Fate will find their niches, which as a fantasy owner does not make me super excited to ever start any of these players.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, too, though. Like, we're not really starting main tanks that often, especially in unlimited leagues to begin with. So, you know, there might be situations when you don't have a tank that's starting 2 games for your Raw Scoring leagues when you would give, you know, a main tank the nod just because, you know, having 2 games would be better than 1, even in a situation with a role that primarily hasn't been as potent on that role. But I would say, like, when you're looking at these new pickups, Gargoyle's probably going to be your safest bet just due to the fact that he is going to be playing the Zarya on this team. I'm more curious to see whether this means that DPI is going to be coming in and playing the Sombra for the Mayhem, but it does mean that, you know, players like Zephyr are not going to be started. But what I found really intriguing about this is not only did they tell us, like, where they see these players fitting in, but it also means that, you know, some of the other rumored players that were attached to the Florida Mayhem at one time, like O2, Blast, support, Myunbun, are not going to be coming over just due to the fact that Mayhem are already at the cap at this point. So I feel like when it comes to that support line, we're not really going to be seeing any sort of adjustment moving forward.
Well, they signed Rain last week as
They
well, right?
did. He's a main support. He will probably be a little bit better of a fit in 3-3, but outside of that, I still feel like they will be moving forward with Chris just because he's more comfortable outside of the current meta. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on what this is going to mean for, you know, their other DPS players. Obviously, Saya player is probably going to be a safe bet to still start for the Mayhem, but where does that leave someone like BQB?
BQB would be their Sombra specialist at this point, right? If they're going to have somebody come in to be like a Zarya like main, we know that BQB's Sombra is pretty good. So I can imagine that they would probably stick him in on that role going forward.
And he did have the worst Graviton bomb I've ever seen in my life.
That's better than no Graviton at all. Thank you.
Actually, no. This was worse than no Graviton at all. He literally launched it, and the only person he caught was his own teammate.
Yep, you're talking about on Ilios, the big one.
Yeah, like in the little side room.
Ruined.
I'm just like,
yeah, it was like, what
are you doing?
Like, but I mean, Ryan's shatter nothing all the time. I was watching Super. I forget who they were playing, but I mean, Super shattered the door.
Shields,
what they're no, he literally shattered nothing. But like, they're trying to preemptively get something. So he thought someone was going to be there in a second, and he was going to catch him. Like, and so it's most likely not a fat finger and just an air. Same as the Nene grab from the playoffs in stage 1.
Mm-hmm.
This was way worse than Nene's.
Yeah, see, pro players like try to figure out what they're going to do next, and they play preemptively, whereas you and I aren't that good, and we play reactively. You know what I mean?
Well, no. What if you watched it? I think it was the Lucio was there right before he threw the grav.
Yeah, I watched it.
I think it was
live.
Lucio. There was another kid. There was someone on the other side right there, and then they moved.
I thought it was his Lucio that was standing there.
No, there was somebody from the other team that was right there, but they were like speeding past, and he tried to get them as they were speeding past. I'm just like,
yeah, and it's just like.
It's like he tried to grab a tracer.
Well, and we forget the Graviton got significantly reduced in size of the actual sphere that pulls you in. You know, like you can get a lot closer to a Graviton than you could, 6 months ago. I think it was about 6 months ago they made that change.
But I mean, I guess as far as like the rest of the team goes, we just don't know what Florida's gonna do. Like,
no, we don't. You're gonna have to wait a week or two, and then
that's the thing.
Stage 3's over.
Yeah, we wait 2 weeks. Stage 3's over, and if we're to believe these reports, then everything changes again.
Yeah, really,
and, like,
really.
DPI goes from like Diva Flex DPS to well, shit, what do I do now? Because I can't play Diva and Flex DPS at the same time. Like, I either have to play Diva or I have to play Flex DPS. I can't do both.
Right. So
You-
really,
you know,
the biggest question mark though is like if they're going to be running Sombra, who's going to be playing this Ahri and who's going to be playing the Sombra? That's really the biggest question mark. Because if they're just running traditional 3-3, we have a more clear picture as to who is going to be in this starting lineup. Now, in regards to the main tank thing, it is interesting that they did go out and pick up a backup main tank after they unloaded a lot of roster space in order to move Fate from the Valiant over to the Mayhem. And by, watching previous seasons of Contenders 3, I will say, like, Karayan's Reinhardt is fairly good. He's more of a reactive player when it comes to landing Earthshatters or just trying to, sneak in those fire strikes. And, if I'm comparing them, like, Reinhardt to Reinhardt, I would probably even give the nod to Karayan at that point. But when you're looking at the current meta, this was a team that did do fairly well in 3-3, but with a shift coming up, I don't know what that's going to mean for like the overall value long term. Short term, this is definitely a good thing, but we'll see at what point these gambles are going to start paying off for Florida, just because we've really seen them add in more and more pieces, and we're still at the point now where Mayhem is still the least winning team in Overwatch League history at this point.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you said something there that, the meta is 3-3. Is it? Like,
For
is
certain
3-3 the meta right now?
It depends on the team.
But even, like, some of the,
I mean,
the better teams are not
I would
running
say-
3-3.
I would say it's like kind of divided into thirds with the Sombra goats, regular goats, and the ball DPS strategy.
Yeah, I would say
Like
Sombra
Bunker-
Goats is, like,
And Bunker's
probably the
sneaking in
meta
there a
right
little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think I don't know. I'm not sure on that. Like Sombra Goats, I would be a cool Captain Planet stat. Like if he could tell us that Sombra Goats were played the majority of the time over all other strategies. That'd be a neat stat to see because it did feel like a ton of teams playing Sombra.
Yeah.
And it's been picking
And
up
then-
too as the stage has progressed as well.
Yeah, and then the other ones are playing like. I think the reason we saw so many upsets this week is people are like, we're just gonna play Pharah and we're gonna do the triple quad DPS strat, and I'm like, hey, other team, there's a Pharah. You need to counter them somehow, but so many teams just weren't.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like,
I-
okay, well, we're
Not
just gonna.
always though. Like lots of times the way to combat Mercy Farah is just good positioning, and then that basically turns it into a 5v4 because
but
the
if you don't
Farah
have
and the
a
Mercy
diva-
are worthless.
If you don't have
Yeah.
a diva, and
Diva
you're basically
helps a
relying,
ton.
if you're relying on Sombra as your really only range, like
Yeah,
Sombra and Anna.
you're not really going after her until you win the 5v4 fight with that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen teams try and bring out McCree to take out the Farah, and just like in regular competitive, it doesn't work. It's the same with the pros. Their Farahs are just that much better. It's hard when you get booped around and you're trying to look up. You end up getting killed by what's right in front of you, and
Well, yeah,
that's
and a lot of that too is the McCree's just not being able to find the angle.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think
it's
I think the
just-
Farah is
Farah
what
is OP.
screwed over Houston. Because Saya player just destroyed Linkser in the 1v1 Widow.
yeah.
And that allowed him to
Linkser had an off day.
Yeah, he did.
Mhm.
But that allows the Widowmaker, who is a very strong counter to a Pharah or Far Mercy, to kind of have a little bit more range to do things.
Yep.
But a lot of teams were just kind of ignoring it. It was backfiring a little, and you saw it. I mean, look at the Justice Spitfire. I mean, the Spitfire almost lost to the Justice, and they got wrecked the first two maps by the Pharah play.
Was that Saturday?
Was it Saturday or Friday? I can't remember. I think it was Saturday.
I feel like
Something-
it must have been Saturday because Saturday I didn't get to see any of the games and I didn't go back and watch VODs because that was when I was doing all the apartment stuff. So that must have been Saturday because I don't remember that.
Yeah, and I mean, and then you look back at when the Spitfire New York Excelsior game, Fury was on Pharah, and like they just we're like, all right, what do we do now?
Fury looked good on it too, man.
Like, you're
Got
just
a
like,
bajillion points.
What else did he play? He played Hanzo too.
yeah. So I'll say this: I want more Pharah in the Overwatch League, because I will say Jake had it right. I will say Jake was right.
Dude,
Pharah's
Pharah is good.
Jake's probably he said Pharah's probably the most fun player to watch in the Overwatch League from their perspective, because you get an overhead view of everything,
Right.
and then you just see them clicking heads basically, and like you see everything.
No, you
and
see
you
him.
see them doing damage.
You
and
see
doing
him
crazy
shooting
things.
to chokes. Like shoot this choke, move, shoot this choke, shoot this choke, shoot this choke. But like Jake's so good at using his actual ultimate. Like that's where the Pharahs oftentimes fail. Jake will freaking get some use out of that shit, man.
I mean, look, it's a 50-50 split here, Bob, because there's times where he comes in and he gets that kill, and there's
Yeah.
times where he goes, he
But
pops
he's
up for the
better
ultimate, and then he gets
than all-
rushed and immediately dies.
But he's better than than like a lot of the other affairs that I've seen play in the last couple weeks.
I want to see that stat from Captain Planet is how many Pharah ultimate deaths. Like, how many times Pharah dies during her ultimate? I would put it at damn near 75% of the time. Like, Pharah's ultimate is a death sentence. Mostly, like, the majority of the time.
Press Q to die. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, usually if you have a Diva or a Zarya, they try to give him a little help. But like Jake's, that's what I'm saying. Like you have to put yourself in such a good spot, and Jake's getting 2 and 3Ks a lot in the last couple weeks. And I mean, it's
Especially
been
against the
fun
Mayhem.
to watch. It's been really fun to watch.
So looking ahead at this week, of course, we need to set our unlimited drafts, because a lot of us are really, I mean, 3 of us are like neck and neck in the leagues that we are in for unlimited drafts. Bob's kind of like doing his own thing. We'll see if he goes all in on another game this week. But Ed, you're usually the one that's kind of at the forefront for this one. So what are we looking at for this week?
All right. Well, I mean, again, we cannot trust the scores, as we have learned since the show started, that all the Vancouver stats are broke and all of the Dallas players' stats are broke. So don't read too much into that stuff. But, there's limited games this week with a lot of teams actually not playing this week due to next week being the homestand. So you have a lot of double matches, but you have a lot of teams taking off weeks because they do have to travel and then play 2 matches again next week. So you do have a bunch of teams just not playing. So with that said, I'll actually go over mine. I'll go over mine first, so Ramses can keep cheating off me.
Oh, whatever.
I think that we talked about the whole tank class this entire week is pretty weak.
Mm-hmm.
I think the obvious choice is one Fury, is I think the obvious choice,
Right.
and then it's hard not to go without John from Vancouver, because there's no really other. I mean, we had talked about it, maybe Poco or RCK, but they're playing. That's banking that they're going to have another close match because they play each other. Other than that, you're looking at people like Choyobin, Finzi.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think Janu is the safe bet because he's kind of been a stalwart the entire stage. Me and you have had the same one support player in our lineup for pretty much the whole stage, and that's Bebe. Has done very well for us the entire stage. So I have Bebe, and then I'm going with Gray as my second support player this week, just because he's been like top 5 support almost every week he plays. So he's got the consistency because sometimes, yes, he will switch over to DPS and gets you some DPS numbers. And then from the support line, I went with Godsby, who has been another good player for us.
He means DPS.
Sorry, DPS. I went with Godsby because he's been good. Seomin Su, he's another one that's basically been in my lineup every single week. And then I'm going with Decay this week as my captain, just because Decay has some pretty good matchups this week. He does play twice,
Mm-hmm.
and then God, who was it? He plays against the Toronto Defiant. That's not a good game. But then they play Vancouver. So, and all he needs to do is have one of those matches work out. So we'll go with that. Ramses, how about you?
So you can't accuse me of stealing because I had these players put in before you ever said anything. So, so from captain to end, captain is the only one I really like struggled to find an idea for because I want to put these Vancouver players in, but if I get superstitious if like the stats go the other way. You know what I mean? Like if we're looking in the stat blocker right now, like that's really hyper inflated for some technical reason, and then you get into like the actual like how they perform and it's not even close to that. I like Twilight would normally be an every week start for me. Twilight still might find his way in. I may switch him out for this player system, but Badoshin is my captain as of now. I'm going Badoshin. I'm going Godsby because Baby Bay is not playing this week. Also because Godsby's been like a top 3 DPS points wise every single week. I'm kind of taking a flyer and putting Color Hex as my DPS 2 because he puts up pretty good points, but they only have one matchup this week, but it is against like the map 5 team of map 5 teams, which is Philadelphia.
They're playing themselves?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm counting on them going the distance with Philadelphia. And then when I fall behind you guys again, you can blame this as one of the many reasons why. Color Hex is DPS 2. Bebe as my first support, same reasons that Ed said. He's been great every week. Shaz as my second support, because when you have somebody, when Shaz is like in your top 5 like potential starters for a week, like how do you not start him?
Mm-hmm.
And then Fury as my first tank, and then my second tank would actually be Rhea from the Hangzhou Spark for the similar from the idea that I think that with either the Valiant or who's their other game with not Florida, crap. I think that they go the distance with the Valiant. I think that they go to another map 5, and in those kind of situations, Rhea has a very high score ceiling. So yeah,
Okay.
Badoshin, Godsby, Color Hex, Bebe, Shaz, Rhea, Fury.
Okay. We will go to up above me. Bob, how about you? What one matchup are you putting all your hopes on?
I am not gonna play this week. I'm gonna wait and play in stage 4, hoping that issues are fixed, and yeah, I'm just not gonna play this week.
But you'll be 2,000 points behind everybody.
Yeah, well, I'll just
goes by stage, too.
I'll just go by stage.
Although we don't
and
have
see if
stage
I
3
did
numbers
any
yet.
good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm just basically like I didn't get it taken care of this week, and there's just no reason. But
It will
I
carry
would-
over what team you had. So it will. You are picking the New York Excelsior and the London Spitfire this week.
oh
It
yeah,
will carry over the team from last.
are they
week.
playing?
They're not playing each other, obviously, but they're playing. London plays twice
Alright.
this week.
Yep. Okay.
So,
Cool. Well
there you
then,
go.
yep.
There you
That's what I'm doing. Actually,
Watch
it might
it.
be. It
Watch
might not
Bob.
be bad. Like Los
letting it
Angeles
roll.
Valiant and the Spitfire, and then New
Watch
York's
Bob
taking on
beats all
Dallas
of us.
Fuel. Although if Dallas Fuel plays like they have been, like New York will stop them, and it'll be bad points.
Well, you know
So,
what, Ed?
that's
We'll never know because we can't look at the prior week anyway.
Well, yeah, actually, in Unlimited you can. You can
Unlimited
see how many
it's
points.
if we didn't change anything.
No, it actually
it's
has
fixed now.
week by
Did they
week.
fix it? Okay.
No, Unlimited has always been different. Unlimited has always had updated scoring. Because if you go to your roster, you can click on roster history and go week by week by week, and it doesn't repeat the points.
Mm-hmm.
So you can
Oh.
actually see how many points you had the last week.
Tiny detail to mention, just because I remembered it. They officially went into the Overwatch League API. Kariv is now listed as a support.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the Overwatch League to actually.
Yeah. So
So
you can put
so
him in
Tony-
there instead of. Yeah.
Totem, who'd you have?
Alright, so starting with my DPS, I went with Godsby and Decay. Honestly, like, my lineup's pretty much a mixture of your two, except I do have, one or two differences. One of them I'm still kind of tentative on. So with supports, of course, I'm sticking with Bebe, because he's been the go-to. And I'm gonna go with the hot hand of Kariv, who was definitely part of the reason why the Titans kind of got shed on against, the Valiant this prior week. And Kariv has been kind of like one of the cornerstones of that team during this recent resurgence.
Boy, I was wrong on that when we went on Push the Point, wasn't I?
Kariv's the man, dude.
Yeah, I gotta admit, like, you definitely schooled me right on that episode, because I was totally wrong. I thought, why the heck would you take out Izzyaki?
Well,
I guess the team synergy.
if Kariv continues to play like he did last week, he's going to continue to be a must-start. With the tank line, I'm sticking with my go-to, which has typically been Fury and Janu. Really no surprise there. But for my flex pick, this is the one I've kind of been going back and forth with. The two people that I've been eyeing specifically have been Bogosian and Agilities. Agilities has always kind of been near the upper echelon for the DPS in most weeks, regardless of if he is on Brigada or flexing to these other roles. But I feel like Bogosian is probably the safer bet. But, London's kind of been cooling off quite a bit lately, and Valiant have been definitely playing up, so I'm probably going to end up starting Agilities, which honestly, like, I think this is going to be the first time I'm going to play him at all in Fantasy.
Man, London's cooling off. What better way to get them back into contention by a 2-2-2 of roll lock?
I hope you guys held on to EQO.
Yeah. I will say this. I couldn't disagree with Totem more when he said that Kariv is a must-start.
The points aren't there.
Yeah,
He
see,
scored
I
in his best
disagreed
game,
with
he
him
scored-
weeks back, but it looks
Like,
I mean,
no,
it looks like he's
From an
right
actual
now.
play point of view, he's a must-start.
Okay, you're talking about
points,
fantasy, gotcha.
He is not. His best game, I think, was 104 points, 106 points.
We're
Yeah,
checking.
that was his best game. It's because Anna's, as good as he plays on Anna players are not getting fantasy points.
I'm basing it off the matches, though.
Yeah, but look at Raucus. Like, Raucus, look at he played Anna the majority of the time. They just don't get the heals. Like, they get heals and damage. They don't get the heals and damage that a Zenyatta would, or somebody who plays a more traditional Sombra Goat or 3-3.
Well, the Zenyatta's a little unfair because, I
that's why
venture to guess 80% of healing is, in the GOATS meta from Zenyatta is his ult. You know
Well,
what I mean?
here's
So,
the thing,
like,
too, though.
it's that combined with all the damage.
With the amount of swaps that we have seen, there are only a couple of teams, realistically, that are running Zenyatta a majority of the maps as well. So I feel like that's definitely fluctuated a lot of the numbers here lately as well.
Yep. We lost Divas. Sombras came in. All of a sudden, makes sense to play Anna again because you're not getting all of your darts, heals, and
Yeah.
everything
I'm
else
just saying,
eaten.
like, I'm just saying, like, he was the 20th highest in support points for its individual game this week. The points right now are not there. I mean, Raucus, Kareem had 109 points. Raucus, who played a majority of Anna as well, had 104 points. Like, it's just that Anna is not outputting the fantasy numbers. Like, main supports are outscoring, like, people who basically play Anna. Even Twilight had a down week. He scored 134 points, which is way less than what he normally scores, but he also played a lot more Anna. And while they're more effective because, like Bob said, that there's no diva in play on the other side a lot, so the bionic grenades and stuff like that aren't getting eaten. It's just, from a fantasy perspective, I can't trust Anna players. I trust Anna players as much as I trust Soul Dynasty players at this point.
Well, we'll see what the Spark and Spitfire run, because neither one have been running Sombra 100% of the time either.
Yeah, it's
that's the thing. Like, it's been so tricky this
Yeah.
stage in particular, just because we have seen kind of teams adjusting week to week. So I feel like really across the board, like you have a couple of mainstay flex supports that are probably going to be at the forefront, but a lot of it is still up for interpretation at this point.
Yeah, I don't get why Spitfire don't bring guard back.
I wondered if they were going to
on
play
Sombra.
guard. Yeah, I really wondered if they were going to play guard against NYXL, but they didn't end up doing it.
Yeah, instead of bringing guard in to play Sombra, they put Fury on Farah.
Yeah, and they put Prophet on Sombra, and he looked better than guard ever did.
Yeah, so
It's profit though. Like
Yeah, Prophet, man. That boy
I
can
don't know. It'll
play
be
anything.
an interesting week, and like, this is the last real week of fantasy that we have. Thinking that we're going to get the 2-2-2 roll-up. Like, for the fantasy, we know this is going to be the last week that we can actually do anything. Because next week, there's only 6 teams playing.
Mm-hmm.
They're just playing.
I thought it was 8.
Or is it 8?
Yeah, it's
So
8 because it's 4 games a day, and they both play 2.
Yeah, so you basically are, very, very limited in what you can do. So this is the last real week before we have like the 2-2-2 roll lock possibly coming out, which would throw everything out the effing window that we know about fantasy.
Yeah, which is
Because-
another reason why I'm not messing with Unlimited this week, because next week I won't have time as I will be on site reporting.
Oh, humble brag.
Now, if I were to do a humble brag, I would say check out the first episode of Al Recap this season, the one marked season opener, and just listen to what I said about Sombra and how important she was going to be in this meta. And now my thoughts coming to
It only
fruition.
took-
Hey,
It'll-
yeah, 3.5 stages.
And that's
then-
a problem with
probably-
the Overwatch League, not
And
me.
that's probably gone. Sombra's probably gone if we go 2-2-2 roll lock.
Yeah. But-
Maybe.
But like literally, I called it. Everybody else on the show didn't. Labasco said Zari was the most important, and then I thought I was wrong throughout stage 2 because I was like, these teams like have to just know more than me. So I'm obviously wrong. So I'll just leave it
mean,
alone.
Good
And then
RCK on
now
the brain.
I am right.
Just
So
not
yeah,
all-
humble brag
all-
there.
for all 4 weeks out of 15 and congrats.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey.
Finally, the Overwatch League listened to me, and now people are winning against Goats Comp.
He's batting 250. That's good enough for the Kansas City.
You
Royals.
don't get it. I was right all along, goofball. It's just
60% of the time.
they were
every
cowards.
time.
and
Hey,
they
and-
didn't play it.
Hey, and Rockus still has another 6 weeks to be a top 10 fantasy support, but I gave up on that dream a while ago.
Yeah.
You gotta know when to hold them and when to fold them, Bobby.
No, dude, I don't know what you guys are trying to turn around. Like, I'm literally right. Like, I was right the entire time. Sombra, the only change she has had is the health pack hack has less of a cooldown. So
Oh, I know. We're giving you crap on like how many weeks of being the most important counts as the
Like-
most important overall, like across the
Oh.
entire season.
yeah, well,
Like,
I just
Sombra
turned out
would
to
be
be
meta.
right, and no one else was right at the
Sombra
time.
could
That's
be
the
meta,
thing.
like season 3, week 1, and Bob's like, if you go back to season 2, week 1, I was talking about how Sombra would be meta. It only took a year, but I was right.
No, I was saying Sombra is what you use to beat goats, Sombra goats. And I was right. It just if the Overwatch League would have listened to me, it would have been meta in
Wait.
season 2. All I can think is that pro players just weren't there wasn't enough pro players to actually play Sombra at a pro level. Like that's all I can think of. And like with the amount of people that said it's hard, I'm guessing that's the reason, because I can't believe that the analysts on all the teams wouldn't have seen what I saw
Well-
opening week. You know what I mean? So like,
You saw it last year though, where like people would just like Houston would like, oh, we're gonna throw Jake on Sombra, and then I love Jake, but Jake Sombra's last year was not very good. So I
yeah,
think
no
it's-
Sombra this year has been bad. There's been bad Sombras. That's all I can think of is that there just wasn't enough Sombra talent to implement the strategy on most of the teams.
Totem, I would like to vote that you name this episode #Bob is right.
And I
No
have
one
proof.
wins if
That's
that's
what
the
I
name.
love about
No one-
podcasting is
no
I
one
have
wins
proof.
if
You
we
can
name
go
it.
back and see so many times I called shit way before it happened, and I love
I'm
that.
calling it now. McCree will be meta in the next 2 to 5 years. Mark it down now.
Ed, I didn't say meta.
I
I
know,
said
but it's so
Sombra
fun to get you
Goats
worked up.
was what will beat goats.
You know,
So wait, a form
yes,
of goats means goats?
A different
Yes.
comp beats goats, yeah.
Goats
Sombra
beat
goats
goats, everyone.
beats goats.
You heard it here first. Goats beat goats.
Well, anyways,
Ed, are you trying to say because the same word is in
I'm
and
trying to get you riled up, and it's
you
working.
but it's not good entertainment. I mean, you are literally just saying wrong shit. You know what I mean? Like you're saying Sombra goats and goats are the same comp?
No, I never said that.
Yeah, we just have
just
bad
like screwing
names for
with
the
you.
comp. That's all
It's
it
not-
is.
it's not floats, moats, or jotes or boats.
it's
so.
a countdown comp.
There's
We've
two
already been
words in
through
it,
this.
so.
Because it's a 3-2-1. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about some of this week's marquee matches for our pick'ems this week. Because we have a lot on the line this week, and we have a lot of teams that are sitting at 3 wins this week as well. So a lot of these are going to be must-wins for a lot of these teams. So to start off, let's talk about the match between the Paris Eternal and the Seoul Dynasty on Thursday. So when we look at this current stage, we have the Paris Eternal, who are right now sitting at 3-3. Meaning that this is going to be a must-win game for them to have any shot at making the playoffs, because 4-3 has been the cutoff point for all of the stage playoffs so far. And then for the Seoul Dynasty, yes. And preferably they have, you know, a win-in map differential, unlike the Fuel did, because that's why they didn't make it that way.
Yeah, it's what the field would make it
But
stage
yeah,
one.
so finish with +1 or higher with a 4-3 record, and there's a chance that you'll make the playoffs. Anything below that is pretty much a no-go. But the Dynasty currently sit at 3-2. So when we look at right now, the Dynasty have a +7 map differential, and this is going to be the first meeting between these two teams. So on one hand, you have the Eternal, who are suffering back-to-back losses this past week, both to the Outlaws and the Uprising. And then, of course, we saw the Dynasty also drop in consecutive matches against the Shock and then the Spark with their you know, Team 1, Team 2, you know, the mixture, and then another mixture. It was a weird week on the solar coaster, to say the least, but when we look at these two teams, we know that Paris has been heavily relying on Danye as of late. They've been sticking to their guns with their 3-3 primarily, and the Dynasty have been more prone to trying a couple of other things that are sort of off-meta. So, Ramses, when we're looking at these two teams, who do you feel like is going to rebound with a win in this one?
Hold on. I just have to know, Totem, did you make the solar coaster up?
Yeah, we've been using that all season.
That's pretty good. I've not heard that. I don't think you've said it on this show. I don't think you've
That's
said it
an
on Never Die either.
That's the Owl End Show original, dude. It's been.
That's also all
Really?
over my Twitter.
Oh, dude, that's good stuff, man.
But anyways,
sorry.
Ramses, back to
Well,
the question at hand.
speaking of good stuff, at least, I think Seoul wins it. I also think that like something that should be noted is that regardless of Seoul seems at least to be a little bit more cohesive of a team.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, excuse me, the last we heard from Paris, especially after that loss to Boston, was them kind of worried about slipping back into like their stage 1 form with their goats. I don't know if you guys saw it on the broadcast, but they tilted Cruz enough to where like he like smashed his mouse on the stage and like kicked it underneath his desk. And he went on Twitter later and talking about like, I'm just so frustrated to be like slipping back to how stuff was in stage 1. And I know you try and move out of that mental state, but I think it's hard to have it like not stick in the back of your head.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we're just going purely like pound for pound skill wise, I think Seoul has a much higher skill ceiling than Paris does. So I think it's Seoul. I think Seoul 3-1.
Okay, so moving on to Friday, we have a rather interesting series between the London Spitfire and the Los Angeles Valiant. So looking at the current Stage 3 records, you have the Spitfire currently sitting at 3-2. Valiant are in a good spot to potentially make the playoffs with a current record of 4-1. But the problem is, when we look at this series across the landscape of the Overwatch League, Spitfire have definitely gotten the upper hand on the Valiant, as they have taken 4 out of the 5 matches so far. And 2 of those wins both came in 5-map series. But, you look at the Valiant, we've seen a lot more synergy coming from this team. Now that they've incorporated Fact Fiction as well as Shax to the lineup, Kariv has definitely been playing some of the best Overwatch that we have seen from him, especially on the Ana, which we noted about. And really, if you're the Valiant, they basically just need to take 1 win either against the Spitfire or the Spark to get that Black Berth. But, both of these games can have the potential to be fairly close. Now, we do know that the Spitfire have been trying some different things, but they've more so relied on their 3-3 this stage, but we've seen a couple of different looks from the Spitfire. So, Bob, what are your thoughts on the Spitfire right now? Do you feel like they are going to be able to match the DPS output that the Valiant have been putting out here in recent weeks?
I honestly think the Valiant are on a hot streak. I think the Valiant are going to win this. I do think it'll be close, probably 3-2, but Spitfire, the Valiant need to win every game going forward, and the Spitfire don't. And so I just don't know. The Spitfire was trying some weird stuff out against New York, and it was interesting, but I just really feel that Valiant's on to something at the moment. It was interesting that Valiant didn't play Space this last week, and they had Shaxon, who was killing it, and I just think the Valiant have found a groove, and for this current weird micro meta that we're in right now, I think the Valiant look pretty dang good.
Well, I know the next match that we're going to be talking about was one that I know a couple of weeks ago was not looking forward to. It ended up being kind of like a low-scoring series overall, and that was a match between the Boston Uprising and the Philadelphia Fusion. Well, luckily for all of us, we get a rematch of that this week. So Boston are coming in, and they are done this stage. They have a 1-5 record, no shot at making the playoffs, and you have Philadelphia Fusion, who are 2-2 so far in Stage 3. Now, these two teams did meet a couple of weeks ago, and the Fusion did take that series in a 2-1 scoreline. And overall, the Fusion do lead the series against the Uprising 5-3. So I'd say, the Fusion, they have been starting to play a little bit more DPS, and go figure, when a team is playing to their strengths, they are looking better. And they do have 2 expected wins when it comes to their last 3 games this stage. So playoffs are not out of the question so far for Philadelphia. But last week we did see Boston bringing AimGod back into the mix. We have seen more of a reliance of Blase moving over to the Doomfist, so we've been seeing a lot of Hackfist compositions from the Uprising as well. But I feel like the Fusion have definitely been leveling up if they have continued to, run this double sniper and Orisa composition. So, Ed, when we're looking at this match, do you feel like it's going to be as close as this prior series? And who do you think is going to come out on top of this one?
I mean, it probably will be. We talked about how they're both the kings of the 5-map series. So I don't think we're going to get a 4-0 in this one. I do think Philadelphia will probably come out ahead, because they're the team who they probably struggled arguably the most when it came to running 3-3 over last season, the ones who fell the most.
Right. But they also look dejected constantly.
They did.
When they're on stage, they look like they don't want to be there.
Yeah, but now they're actually playing characters they're good at. They're playing stuff like you said. They're actually playing to their strengths, which is what a lot of teams are doing now. Like Houston, playing to their strength. They're just saying, screw goats. Basically, we're going to run what we're best at, and we're going to make it work. And Philadelphia is a team that can benefit from that. Probably the most in the league compared to how low they are to what their ceiling is. So I think Philadelphia is probably going to win this one, because they're going to play what they're comfortable with. And you know what? Boston is another team who's not going to just run traditional goats. they're gonna run the double sniper or Doomfist,
Really?
Widowmaker. They
Boston seems to be like 3-3 goats constantly.
they switched
Not-
this
not
past
lately.
week. Like Blase has been playing Doomfist.
Yeah,
which
Blas
is
has been playing Doom.
arguably one of the best Doomfists in the league. Color Hex has been pretty good on Widow.
Boston was the one to actually try out what's it called? I don't know what I was thinking, but yeah, Boston was the one to try Clockwork Vendetta comp. They looked horrible on it. It was against, I think, Vancouver. But
Was it the one where they just locked themselves in there? No, who was the one on? Was it Dorado where they just locked themselves with a May in the side room, where they can
Dallas.
contest the point? Was that Dallas?
Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about Clockwork. They ran the actual Clockwork Vendetta comp, like the full comp with the Torb, the May, the Roadhog, and it was exciting to see, but it failed horribly. It was like, well, okay.
Yeah. So it's just
But-
Boston is still trying to find their way.
Mhm.
I think with who they're going to start, hopefully they'll probably start Kellex and Aim God this week, who they had obviously their most success with because it's the only
You know what
support
Persia?
duo they got their. Well, I mean, Aim God and Kellex have combined.
I mean,
to
maybe
their
we can
one
put
win.
Persia in as a DPS now. Maybe we could stick him in as a tank or something. Like we've tried him out on both different support slots. Why don't we just, keep it, keep it going. pay
I'm
it
starting
forward.
Color Hex and Blase in one of my leagues, so if we
You're
could
starting Color Hex and Blase in every league because you bank on the Boston Uprising more than anyone I've ever met in my life.
60% of the time, every time.
Yeah, they're 1 in 5. But no, I think the Fusion win this because I think you're going to start seeing EQO and Carpe kind of come back into their form and be less depressed playing Zarya and Big Ed.
All right, well, moving into Sunday, we had the Los Angeles Gladiators, who were 3-2, going up against the Vancouver Titans, who are 5-1. That feels weird saying that. Like, Titans actually lost.
Man, what a weird week.
What
for
a
you to
weird
both
week,
your
like,
teams.
whew, man. But anyways, so obviously these two teams did face one another prior. This was back in Stage 3, Week 1, and the Titans did come out on top of the Gladiators in that one with a scoreline of 3-1. Now, basically, Vancouver, they can sit tight, like with 5-1. They're basically in not just the season playoffs, but the stage playoffs as well. But this is all about getting the top seed for them. So if they come out and just crush LA Gladiators, good chance they'll finish on top of the stand-ins yet again for another stage. But the Gladiators, they've been a team who I feel like still to this point, like, they've been doing good. And they've always kind of, like, been in that, like, constant top 5, top 6 discussion, but we've yet to see them really challenge Vancouver or the Shock. So, Ramses, how do you feel like the Gladiators are going to fare in this contest, knowing that the Titans are going to be a little bit bloodthirsty after losing to the Valiant in the prior week?
Well, I think it comes down to Vancouver. I think you hit a great point. Vancouver has to decide what they want to do this week. Because they could just sit tight, try the New York strat of just not showing anything because they already have like their playoff spot locked down. Like the dam's open, Vancouver's lost already, so now it's them trying to figure out how do we adapt to a new meta and a new like style of team comp.
I think
So-
Deepay, dude.
DK is smart.
I think Deepay looks at the VOD, and I think that this is definitely a roster that can play the DPS. Like, I think Deepay looks at the VOD, and as long as Fury can play some ball, I think they
You
have a
Roar?
chance to win. Roar, sorry.
Well, I think Gladiators definitely like have a chance to win. I wouldn't say that they have like awful odds.
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes down to more. I mean, we know Shaz is a fantastic Zen. He's a really good Ana as well. I think it's whether or not he's as clutch of an Ana as Kariv is. And then it's just with Vancouver, what do you really do? Do you try and go all in on Salem and Sue on the Sombra?
You
Do
do
you,
exactly what Valiant did. Play mostly Sombra, or mostly DPS cops and some Sombra goats.
So here's the other part of this too, is that one of Vancouver's weaknesses, if you could even call it that, is that for them to run like a wrecking ball centric comp, they have to switch a bunch of stuff around. Like
to run
Johnny
a
was
lot of stuff. Seo Minsu has not looked good on the DPS that he has played either. Like you
Outside
get
of
him
Greg.
off of Zarya, he goes from S plus to, B plus, maybe A minus.
well, it's the kind of thing though. Like we joke about like, oh, like bumpers on the Hanzo, like isn't that funny? But it's because like he can't play ball to a high level. And if Johnny's your best ball player, you want to still have bumper in when you need to like go back to a more GOAT style comp. So you have to stick him on a DPS and hope that he doesn't like ruin stuff for you.
Yeah, I mean, like really, it's what we have said as content creators for a long time. We've pointed out different games in stage 1. Houston and someone else took a map on Spark took a map on Vancouver when they forced them to change off of goats. And if Vancouver changes off of goats, they look bad unless they're rolling a team and they do their little Hanzo strat with bumper. Like when they're forced to move off of it, they suck at it.
So before we get the verdict, I have one question for Totem. Between what do you think the best like DPS rotation would be right now for Vancouver? Do we put Hawks on the Sombra or Stitch, or do we put Salem and Sue? Like what's the play at this point?
Ooh, this is kind of a weird one. I mean, Hoxell's known for projectiles, so that wouldn't be a good fit. But I don't think we've seen the Hack Fist from them yet, so I think you would just stick with Salem and Sue on the Sombra, get him more reps, because we saw how well that worked for SBB back when your
Everybody
Excelsior
says that.
would breed in
That's
the
not
back end.
true though.
It is
SBB
true.
just didn't
on the
play
first-
good. Yeah, he just didn't play good against non-goats comps. As soon as Houston went to goats, he looked like a fucking god.
The difference
Ooh, I
is, Bob, I'm
specified.
talking about reps. That's what Seo Minsu needs. He needs more reps on the Sombra. And the only way that they're going to do that is if he's in playing Sombra.
Definitely, but SBB didn't play poorly. He just played poorly against non-goats comps. And
Regardless,
like I just hear so many people say that he had a slow start when he first came in. I'm like, no.
Well,
it's
he
just the
did, and a
first
lot of
few
it was
maps.
due to the fact that he doesn't know how to use his translocator close enough to the fight, because he was spending so much time running around the map as opposed to being active.
But he didn't play against goats. He played against Houston's DPS comps, and then Houston just decided to throw the last 3 maps, and play goats, and so he just rocked them then, and then he rocked it the next week. So he rocks against goats comp.
But
I mean,
I'm not even talking about versus Goats comps right now, Bob.
so regardless, I think Gladiators win. I think they take it 3-2.
Okay.
I think that Vancouver's going to panic and have a hard time stopping the bleeding. I think that they're really going to have to struggle to figure out what they do with this
But
kind of solution.
Do you think the Gladiators win by doing the DPS comps?
Yeah.
And the Somber Goats? Okay. You don't think they're going to take the mirror up against them?
Yeah, I don't think anyone, I think in their right, can go goats, go 3-3 against
Outside
them.
the
and be
shock.
like, we're good. Yeah, outside the shock and be like, we're gonna win. I think the Gladiators have to go with you're gonna see some cheese comps from them, especially because you have Surefour who can, you're gonna see some bunker comps from them. You might even see Decay, Surefour, and Hydration all out there at the same time, and see some weird comps. I think they know they can't go after them with 3-3. I mean, Custa put it best after they beat them. They're like, we knew we cannot beat them 3-3.
Right.
So we came in knowing we're not going to play 3-3 whatsoever. And that's a smart thing to do against them. Why go up against the best team in the league at what they're best at? Go up against them in something that you know can maybe throw them off. So I could see the Gladiators really kind of sneaking this one through, but I don't know. I think the Titans are after that loss last week, their first loss, they're gonna come back with a vengeance. This
What are
weekend.
the maps? Because the maps will play a big role in in this
See,
matchup.
bring that up right
Is
now.
me too.
All right, so map 1 you have Ilios, and then you have Horizon Lunar Colony,
Definitely
New-
a DPS map that
Yep.
definitely can play DPS.
the
Or
Numbani,
And watch point.
New Body
and
could
then-
definitely be DPS.
and then Watchpoint.
Watchpoint, I bet you they still try and go Goats route.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely like 3 maps that could definitely do DPS.
Mhm.
I
So-
would say Ilios only like 2 of the maps, but
Yeah, I'm just gonna. I mean, Vancouver's lost 1 series outside of the championship game. They've lost 1 match. I don't know if I can go against them yet. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, my
they
only
lose
thought
1
was,
game. I can't.
my only thought was Deepay could figure out what was done to beat them, and then he could do similar things with the roster options that he has. That was just my thought.
Yeah, it's 100% they could do that. I just can't go against the Titans at this point. I need to see more weaknesses out of them than 1 match. So
Understandable.
You know, Ed says that after, the Shock beat him, and then he's like, oh, Titans are now the second best team.
hey, they beat them in the championship game. You got to vote the championship team first place. You do.
1-1. But anyways, with that being said, guys, I know we are starting to run a little bit long, so we're going to go ahead and close out the show for tonight. And hopefully, Titans will get a win back, so, they can keep building that map differential. So it's going to be just a no contest for all of Stage 4. But anyways, of course, we do have a number of ways how you guys can help us out. And one of the best things to do is to go leave us a review. I know we got a new review, but it wasn't a written one, but we did get another 5-star review. So unfortunately, I can't read that. But Ramses, I'm going to switch it up a bit here. So when we're talking about reviews, where can our listeners go ahead and leave us some of those? Because I know we have a couple of different podcatchers in particular.
Well, I know that generally the best one to hit is just iTunes. It's like the main podcatcher. It's the most visible one. So definitely just whatever your podcast app of choice, but iTunes is usually your best bet for being able to do any of that.
And supposedly it helps us show up higher in the rankings too. Supposedly, I don't know that I buy into it, but supposedly.
I mean, either way, like, if they search Overwatch League, it's just going to be buried by your other networks. So.
Either way, it warms our hearts.
It does.
When you guys leave them, and it really does. It's a little thing for you, but it really makes us feel good about doing the show. So please.
And of course, you can always reach out to us as well. Either by email or Twitter. But of course, if you were looking for additional Overwatch-related content, we also have Overwatch Recall, which you can find, either on Twitter or on our website. I know this week I was a little bit late getting the weekly recall out, just due to a lot of stuff happening in IRL, so a lot of family stuff going on, so I got it out Monday night following Overwatch League Network. But just stay posted to OW Recall on Twitter. For the latest information there, and I do have some updating to do in regards to the directory, because I know there's been a couple of other podcasts lately, within the last couple of weeks, that have probably not posted in probably about 2 months at this point, and usually the cutoff point is at 6 weeks for our podcast directory. But Ed, we have a number of different ways What?
I'm raising a hand.
I was just about to ask, are you raising your hand? I couldn't tell if you're playing with your ring or raising your hand.
Just in case anybody had any delusion about it, the Four Heads is not an Overwatch podcast just because it has Overwatch people on it.
No, but they do have Josh and Plat Chat. They do have an Overwatch like Reinforce, Mr. X, Bren, and Sideshow have a
video cast.
A video cast, but they do have that out there. But yeah, Warheads is not 100% not 100. I cannot stress that enough.
I almost clicked on it today, and then I decided not to.
It is a great podcast. Like,
it's
it is
fun,
entertaining to listen to.
They also started like a D&D like
vodcast. See that with Uber's girlfriend, who's a super nice girl. Like, you guys ever get to meet her? She is so down to earth and cool. And then it's like Sideshow and Johnny. And Johnny plays in the beard that he came out in stage 1 and freaked out Malik. He plays in the beard.
My
And
boy
like,
Johnny the Wise.
it's hilarious. I've definitely watched half of each of those episodes.
It's worth it just for the costumes to see how ridiculous they all look. But as I was saying, Ed, of course, we have a number of ways how our listeners can get a hold of us. So why don't you go ahead and let them know how they can do that?
All right. Well, you can reach us through email at contact@owlnshow.com. We are on Twitter, so you can come join us over there. Follow us and get all the up-to-date stuff at @OWL by the numbers. We do have a website where we post all our podcasts, all our YouTube content. That's www.owlnshow.com. We are on YouTube, and that's youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are in Discord, so you can come over there, chit-chat with us during the matches, and that's at discord.me/OWLNshow. We are on Twitch presently, so come over, watch us during all of our live streams at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly, so Mondays at 7 p.m. Pacific, we have the Overwatch League Network. On Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, we have OWL by the numbers, this show that we talk about fantasy shenanigans. And then Wednesdays, we have the show Totem and myself do together. That's Heroes Never Die. That's at 5 p.m. Pacific.
That's my favorite.
And then host streams when available. Your favorite isn't the show you're on?
No, dude, that's my least. Dude, like,
Your
I
least
hate
favorite?
listening to myself. Yeah,
Oh,
like
you don't podcaster bait?
no, I listen just to learn, but like, I hate it. It's cringe. It's cringe.
Oh yeah, no, I cannot listen to
voice.
like. I'll admit this.
But I love you and Totem's like chemistry on Heroes Never Die. Like, I don't always catch the entire thing because it's long.
It's super
but I
long.
always at least listen to the first half of every episode.
Yeah, yeah. I don't listen to any of my own podcasts because I have it burned into my brain, Multizord, when the Cavalry first came out about how he went off on this tangent about podcaster baiting and listening to your own podcast, and ever since then I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, see, I just do it to try and learn, especially like when like on shows hosting and stuff. I just do it to try and just get better.
Yeah. So, all right, we do have host streams on our Twitch, and that's when available on a flex schedule. So be sure to follow us on Twitch or join us in Discord, and you'll be able to find out all that stuff. If you want to help us out even further, we do have a Patreon, and the Patreon is patreon.com/OWL Network. So we recently launched our network's Patreon page for those that want to support our Overwatch network even further. Tiers start at just $1 a month, so you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons of Blazing Bob, this guy, Brendan, Josebel, Jay-Z, and Owl in helping our network grow. And I'm not gonna have a crazy question tonight.
What?
I'm gonna have a crazy stat.
Oh, God.
And this is an actual stat from the Overwatch League that is absolutely insane.
Is it about Boston?
No, it's
Okay.
about
Yeah,
Karif.
you were thinking it was the hero fight or the team fights.
No,
Like,
it's Karif. How many? All right, closest to what whole close, because it's not an even number. Like, it's not like 1 or 2 or 3. Closest without going over. We're going Price is Right rules here. I want one guess from each of you. How many sleeps per map for the entire week did Karif have?
Oh, this is
So,
unfair. I
Julian?
didn't see that.
Julian.
I know the total number. Crap.
Okay, if you know the total number, we're skipping. Totem
Oh yeah.
So average per map?
per map.
Okay. I'm gonna go. Oh, jeez. 8?
Okay, Bob.
I'm gonna go 6.
All right, Totem actually had like a dead on. It was 8.75 sleep per
My
map.
God, that's a lot.
He had
He had 35
70
total.
Yeah.
Right?
Jeez.
No, he
I
had
wonder what
70.
Harry's was because I felt like he
70
was
total?
getting sleep.
70 for the week. 70 sleeps on the week.
I like how as it gets later, like Ramses is falling further and further into the
Right?
darkness.
Like, is Ramses in the Batcave?
Mr. Abercrombie just has to have the right lighting. You know what I mean?
wow.
Oh, is that what it
As,
is?
you cannot call him Mr. Abercrombie when he has
Sachet
a Ralph
Shantae.
Wiggum shirt on
Sachet,
with two
sachet,
straws up his
Shantae.
nose. So you can contact me personally on Twitter, and that's at EdinarOverwatch. Ramses, where can they find you at?
You can find me at Twitter at Ramses_OW, and you can find my show at push.pod.
All right, Bob, where can they find you?
You can find me and my other show on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. Totem, where can we find you?
Well, I'm also on Twitter at TumblydrunkCTR. And if anyone is collecting the OWL trading cards, I am looking for the Soul Dynasty inks and fragments, so I'm trading for those, so hit me up on there. You can find me there at TumblydRunk. But with that being said, guys, I want to thank everyone again for hanging out with us tonight on another episode of OWL by the Numbers. This has been episode number 21. I've been your host, Tumbly Drunk, joined by Edinar, Blazing Bob, and he who is currently in the abyss, Ramses, and we hope
I'm still here. I didn't go anywhere.
He's here, but like every time I look over, he's like even more faded.
Right?
Yep,
And
doing
then-
those model poses and
Yeah.
everything.
And
Oh,
honestly,
whatever, Bob.
I compare it most to, because he's wearing a black hoodie. It's kind of like if you wear all green and you have a green screen behind you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
That's
that
perfect.
is what, and you have black hair.
Dude, the
So
best
really
is
all-
drinking Heineken while you're doing the green screen because you're just drinking an invisible bottle.
There you go. So now that you have that pro tip,
I
we-
mean, I can do that without a green screen. I'm having Heineken.
But that would be silly, Ed.
Have you met me?
Got him.
so
Got him.
if you want to watch more shenanigans, be sure to stop by tomorrow night for our next episode of Heroes Never Die. But that's it for us. Take care, guys, and have a good night.
Heroes never die.